we need to
Let's take a look at what it
I
did.
think it might be a little bit bigger. The main thing that we'll need to look at is the auth piece.
Yes.
I've been throwing around pieces of the auth. Also, like I have performance concerns. I don't know like how unperformant it'll be, but like if we want to do the tools right, where we are formatting the response correctly, right? Building some XML. Um, if we want to do all of that correctly, we have to do some form of string manipulation, right?
Yep.
So, but the problem with that is like, can we do that in Rails? I mean, we can, right? But should we?
I think finding a way to do it programmatically is kind of the hard part because I think every tool we want to have some level of string manipulation that's like a post processing.
Yep.
And for me, it's like in this tool and just looking at it, like where do we get the actual blob request is in the read repository service. Okay, this is the perform. Yep. Here we go. We read one file at a time and then we get the
Yep.
results. Like at that point, that's when the post-processing needs to happen if
Yep.
we want it to get in an XML format. And right now, none of our tools are in XML format. They're all base 64. Um,
Yeah, I know.
so I think that is kind of like, for me, I'm like, well, every tool, if we want to do this, we probably want to find a programmatic way. So maybe formatting the content here as an XML is not the biggest concern for me because I just feel like in general, that's something we need for all of our tools.
You're saying post-processing?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I just was thinking maybe it would, I don't know if it's too late, but it would be kind of nice if you could do this in Workhorse, where you don't have to worry necessarily too much about um crashing the Rails server. But
Mm.
um
I definitely think that's something to do. I think Igor mentioned that in a later thing, but I think just what was built initially, it was not it was just an initial MVP of like, can you get an MCP server? And then
yeah,
now we're
I can't really understand what he built there. Like there's something Martin sent it to me.
so what Igor did is kind of so I don't, I'm sure you probably know the story just as much as I know the story, but from my understanding is like the dev API team built the initial
In Rails,
MCP
yes. Yeah.
auth and like protocol that would just confirm that you can send a tool and create an
Yeah.
application in the GitLab Rails. And then what's been done pretty much since then is get new tools added and also try to find a way to apply like a system approach to assigning like one-to-one tool mapping or like a declarative tool mapping to our GitLab API. And that is really just this like feature flag that wraps around the grape API and then creates a new endpoint.
I see what Igor did here. He made an MCP client on Workhorse for agentic chat. I see what he did.
Can you
So,
send that to me? Maybe I missed that.
it's just a POC, but that makes sense.
Oh. Hmm. Interesting. Neymar implemented MCP client in Workhorse. What what exactly does the benefit for this, I guess, assigning it in Workhorse? to me, it seems like we don't have to do a request. Sorry, what was it? Base MCP.
So basically, this means like, all right. So when you do MPX, um, remote MCP, and you connect via your local MCP, like MPX, that tool essentially, and
Hmm.
it establishes a transport connection. He built the same thing in Workhorse so that a client, so like basically you can, for instance, an agentic chat, um, it can establish a connection directly to Workhorse as a client, essentially. Um,
Okay. So instead of doing it to the Rails application, it goes
no,
to
it's
you.
still there's still it at least from what I can tell here, there's still you still define the tools in Rails. Um, it's just saying Workhorse becomes an MCP client that talks
Hmm.
to the Rails MCP server.
Okay.
So look at the chart. User establish WebSocket connection to Workhorse, get and then auth requests, do workflow service and MCP configurations, a list of available tools, establish gRPC connection to do a workflow service, input that may require MCP tool call.
What
Oh,
enables support for self?
I see, yep. So workflow service talks to Workhorse to run MCP tool to action or something.
Also, I'm sorry I missed the meeting that was there and I watched the recording, but I don't remember. Are we trying to deprecate do agent platform tools in for MCP tools that are built on their server? Like
Yeah.
we don't need multiple create merge request tools. To me, doesn't make sense. But I guess is there a
Yeah,
reason why?
so all the tools that live in AI Gateway are gonna go bye-bye. That's the gist of that proposal.
Okay.
Um, and those tools get replaced by the server-side tools.
Okay. That's good to know. Because I was wondering if we should create an epic to say, okay, this is tools we should remove and no longer support in the Duo Agent platform. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I see why Igor made this. So basically, if you do an MCP client and do a workflow, there would be HTTP problems. Um, with Workhorse proxy, you can do a gRPC connection. The incoming issue with incoming request is solved. Um, yep.
Hmm. Be nice to have a lunch and learn for this because I feel like this is actually a really smart approach.
Um,
Anyway, okay. Anyways, back to the original issue. Um, Thank you for how did you find that? I didn't even know Igor was working on that.
um, Martin sent it to me, and I remember it from I'm I remember it from one of the meetings. So, um,
Um, what is this?
okay. So
The AI, the authorization component.
nothing changes for us. That's what. Um, so the main questions we need to work through for this read files tool is like the end goal. Hopefully, you understand like what the structured input and output needs to be, right?
Yeah. And it's pretty well defined in the input screen schema. It's like
Yeah.
here are you take a path, a branch, sorry, ref, line start, line end, and max lines. And then you do this for each file that you have, which you do in this, what is it? Results. Yeah, you go through each file and you read one file at a time, and then you're constructing some XML there. But I think the main thing for me is like in the read repository service, this files API, wherever we do, yeah, here we go. This access, here we go. Read file repository access. This is like the thing that I'm mostly concerned about is how you define scope to this tool and what abilities you allow, because right now it looks like you're doing it on a resource. Um,
Yeah, so I'm just in that case is just basically trying to see can we so if you go to what is it called? Let me pull up the code. What is that file called?
uh, uh, repository files access. Yeah.
Repository files. That's a new file though.
Oh, the
Uh,
ax
what is it? Is it files.rb? So go to files.rb.
the actual endpoint,
Uh,
API endpoint.
yes, where it's extending API base.
Yeah. Well, let me one
And
more.
look where I deleted code. So again, this is old code. So don't worry about what I deleted. Just look for the actual code.
Hmm.
If you have my branch checked out or not.
I do.
So if you check out the main file or master file, um, like the original code, there's this authorize read code method, and authorize read code is used all over the project. And essentially, it's defined, where is it? Hold on. Define, authorize, recode. And looks like it just does authorize, which is like a base method for the helpers class. Um, and I think we include API helpers, right?
Hmm.
Yep, API helpers, API helper, API module helpers, right? Module API class, base. Um, Let me find authorize read code. And so it puts in the read code symbol and user project.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then it runs the find project. And yeah, it has a bunch of like auth logic behind it, right?
Hmm. Okay. Well,
So
looks like this is pretty much, at least from what was vibed, it pretty much copies the logic that was associated with the authorized read code that was
yeah.
initially there. Okay.
So my goal is basically like, what if I don't know if we should do this. I don't know. Like this is probably part of the problem of our auth is that it seems like we have no centralized auth architecture, right?
Hmm.
Or auth service. So like in the ideal world, you would just do, you know, auth service. Here's the project, here's the user, here is the um, file, right? Give me back what is allowed.
Yeah.
Um,
In an ideal world.
in an ideal world, we don't have that right now.
Mhm.
So right now, like the logic is literally like it goes to the API helpers, does find project, like it's hard coded off logic. Um, so I was seeing maybe my goal is to see maybe all the auth logic rather than rewriting it, duplicating it, can we just move the existing can read authorized code check to a service class that both the new MCP tool and the API um, endpoint can leverage for that authorization check. Um,
Well, I was thinking, what if we
but that
took,
might be for engineering for now and like against GitLab standards. So I don't know.
yeah. Well, I mean, in right now, what we do is in each MCP request, we pass in the JSON RPC string and then a set of params that are associated with the tool. I'm wondering if before we do the API request, if we do it some check here, well, we need to know the user and the project, and those are for this specific tool, like whatever it could be for whatever resource.
You'll have the user in the header for sure.
Correct. I don't have the project here, and they're like the tool.
That'll be a param of the MSP tool, right?
Yeah, that would be a param of the MCP tool, assuming the param is required on that tool.
Yep.
And I guess like I was thinking before we do the call tool thing, we do like authorized, and then we have some MCP access dot is is available, whatever. That's a horrible name. And we can pass in the params and and then we also need to know the user. Yeah. And whatever this resulting output is, we don't actually check.
Saying instead of doing it at the tool level, do it as like this access service.
Yes. Yeah, and that's always checked for each tool. And obviously that's more effort, but I think it needs to be done for each tool just because if we're doing it per a custom tool, it also has to be like, and this is also a custom tool. Then you want to do this. If it's a custom tool and this is accessible, then you can do the handler of the list to.invoke, which is part of the MCP manager.rb.
We could do that. Do you want
And
to
like,
handle that part and I can do the actual read files?
yeah, that's what I was thinking. And this would like inherit from a different authorization. I guess we could put it in the
Thing
API.
is, you have to make sure you validate, does the user have, so if we do read files, can we go back to the schema that I proposed?
Yeah, was in the
I
MCP.
think project path is part of the array, right? Or I do files for one project.
You
We
do
should
it.
maybe redesign this. Instead of project path at the top level, it might make sense to do, well, no, then the model will have to do project path per array element.
Are you doing it for? You're saying we should do it for each.
If you wanted to make it a really fancy tool, you would do like this whole thing would be an array. So then like the LLM can read from multiple projects, and multiple files in a single tool call, but that might be over. You can always change that later anyways.
Do you
So yeah,
think? Do you think that would work well? I'm kind of curious. Like, this would be a
yeah,
whole array.
LLMs are very good at it, believe it or not.
Hmm, okay.
The latest ones are, but again, we don't. That'll be too complex for now. This is, I think, complex enough. Um, Line start, line end. Might even think like again, this is just mostly like hacking around. So for your auth piece though, you'll need to we'll need to agree on a property like project path, project ID,
Hmm.
right? That you will validate to see if the user has access. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
How would
Um,
how would we go about, I guess, like testing, like assuming I mean this is not a GitLab Duo access, but like I would maybe enter a project that my don't have the user doesn't have access to. I guess like everything on my GitLab instance I should have access to, like on my JDK, like as a root user. So I guess I would need to sign in as a different user and
Yeah.
then
Yeah, that's
test
how you
this.
test it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Makes
Like you would like create a private project and remove visibility or something and make sure the user is not invited to that project. Um,
But I also need to check to make sure if params has a project ID
yes.
or
So, and yeah, we can go with project ID over project path. I'm not married to either one.
sure,
Um,
either one. As accessible to that, then you want to do okay.
you see what I'm saying? So like we'll have to check all those things. And you have to make sure we you validate. Is there any file path checks or let me look, go to the files API. Where is the input param? Authorize AI access. Authorize read code. So authorize read code does what? Authorize read code. It does read code user project. What is user project? So it gets the project, find project. So it only checks the project. I don't think it checks. There's no specific file checks. So yeah, the permission check's only at the project level, which is good. So as long as you only pass in the project. So for all these tools that we do, we're gonna have to check for those things.
Yeah,
But you're right, it makes sense, I think, rather than doing these checks at the tool level, um, we just run those checks at the entry point before running the MCP tool.
yeah.
Um,
That's at least to me, it makes sense. Um, so I'm just thinking about it.
but also, if the check requires a database lookup or anything like that, um, you don't want to re-pull that out from the params passed into the tool.
No, but is there a way to do that without? Because in general, like all these, there's like two things we need to do. One, make sure it's we have access to the specific tool based on their project and the project mostly and the user. And then the other one is like we need to make sure that we're respecting their exclusion files that is Alan's Alan's like a priority of that. So like regardless is I think we have to do this by checking at the params and doing in a like a database call. Like I'm not really
No,
sure
I'm
how
saying
else to
yes,
do it.
you have to, of course. I'm saying if you do a database call and we get the user project, let's pass that project into the tool,
Ah, okay, okay. Okay.
right? So if you get project, which is the like the project object, right? Um, like when you do authorize, it should give you back the project object if you can. Um, then you pass that into the file tool.
Yeah,
I don't know. We can. I'm a little bit performance obsessed, so
no, you're good.
um,
So in the I guess so I'm just clear on that. So when I get the project, instead of passing to the tool the actual project ID, you actually just want me to pass the project object associated.
might be better that way. Yeah.
Okay. Um,
Same thing for user.
I'm kind of thinking this probably would be a lot better, assuming we implement instead of just these like the resource requests. Like if you can already get the resource instead of calling the tool, like you have access to the resource from the project. You have the project object or whatever object, and then in the handler request, you can say like, do you have access to that resource? And you've saved it as an MCP resource, and then you can call the tool. That's maybe over engineering though. Like that's where I'm seeing like that we could see a benefit from there.
Yeah. And there's call tool new.
Anyways, so what is my thing making this? Okay, let's get
Does
going.
every tool have the same? I don't remember. Does every tool have the same method? Like call new?
Yeah, like in the
By
initial
default.
in the initialization, um, you can specify the like tool capabilities in the MCP protocol.
No, I was just saying implement like in the actual implementation, each one of these tools you define have I guess
An initialization.
yeah, and not that the invoke method,
Yeah, it's part of the base. I don't know why my Rubocop isn't working.
override perform. What is
Oops. There.
perform? It
Nope.
looks like they're making a separate HTTP call in the get issue service.
So what gosh, come on. Command Option D. I don't want this. The doc. Get out of here.
Are they performing a request to Rails itself?
In the old version, yes. Um, in this new server implementation, no. So right now, like if we look at, let's go to like a list tool spec. It does post the endpoint to get the actual tools associated here. And right now there's two implementations. There's the RPC endpoints, which you have, if it would work, gosh, my stupid Roboco. Come on.
You don't use Shopify Ruby LSP?
I do, but I don't know why it just doesn't do this by default. And I don't know if you saw on my settings, I was trying to get it enabled on default. And right now it does this every single time that I have to restart the language server. So I'm wondering how to best set this up so it's can when I like load my window, it's going to register that it should not use. I don't know what it's looking at right now. It's like bundler. I don't know. It's supposedly set up. It's like starting, but it's not. It's always slow. Um, Sorry, yeah, this does a request every single time. Um, just in general to an HTTP request. But I think going forward with the new implementation, the new server request, it doesn't call that by just creating an additional override to the grape API so that it's just calling the tool directly from the API request and not performing an HTTP request separately. So that was like one of the benefits of Igor's mapping. Base.
I see. Okay. So if you do the tool mapping, it doesn't do a separate HTTP request.
No, it like it assigns on each of the API routes the MCP route setting, and then gosh, if my
I
fucking
see. It literally becomes, yeah, I see.
so that was like one of the other benefits of
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, might have made sense to put the entire MCP server in Workhorse because then we don't have to worry about all these permission issues. Like we just call the API under the hood, right? You just make a go request to the API.
hmm. How would you format that? I've never written that, but I'm guessing
Go, you just write some Go code to make the request to Rails directly with passing the users off, then get the response and format it however you want and send it away. But
okay.
they decided against it because I think the auth is in Rails.
Oh. Okay, that makes a little
That's what
sense.
I'm saying. There's like a lot of they're like if you want to do the tools right, like we're trying to do with this read files tool. I don't know, maybe we just should just grok the Rails part a little bit more. We just need to make sure we get the auth right, which I like your service approach. Um, as long as we pass the object through, and then it should just be the custom tool, as long as the params are validated.
Hmm. Mhm.
But you'd have to call the same logic that you do for the single API call, can read file. What is it? Or authorize read code.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that for a lot of code, like read file, anything with a reading file, we're gonna have to do that. So there might be a lot of checks depending on every API feature that we build. I think like in general that it's gonna be a little bit gross, in the sense like if we do this for I don't know, custom tool for I think this is mostly for tools that are not doing a single just explicit mutation, but for like getting context from files. So like files, blobs. I mean, really mostly like anything related to files. That's what I'm thinking about. So maybe it won't be as big. But let me go back to the code I was writing. Okay.
Maybe we
Um,
should get someone who knows the auth very well to
to
make
help
sure.
out. I think that is very would be very valuable. Okay. Then case result. So let's go to let's define an MCP. Let's include this. Yeah, let's actually have this as a helper for the P access. It's a module. Let's see where path is this. I'm thinking about doing something along this lines, is including a module with an MCP access. And actually, would that work? No, because then I need to know the object. And like I want to maybe I should just define methods for right now and then see about refactoring. Okay. Okay, so at least right now I'm thinking have some like helper methods that are defined on the MCP base class, and they're gonna do what I want for accessing code and anything else. And assuming I want to refactor it, I can do something about including it as a module. But I think right now that may not make sense because I don't I don't know. I just rather see the methods just directly. All right, so this is define format. Okay. It's going to be project ID, which I'm going to pass this from params. Project. Hmm, project. That makes sense before I go down this route.
Doing it so you're doing the auth.
In separate file, like helper files, separate helper methods here, pretty much like the OAuth access token, but for specifically the user and project. And then right before we do an actual
I
request,
wouldn't do it as a method. I'll just create a new file for this and call it like MCP auth service.
yeah, I initially was going to do that, but I was thinking about just taking these, writing them out, and then I'll see that and then creating a new file and then just including it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm saying for the production, like it'd be nice if we had that logic a little bit more encapsulated, but if you want to do it with the method just to see if it works for sure.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna do it the method to see if it works and then go from there. Okay, the current user, let's see. So then we had this, go back to the files API, files. Yeah, let's do this. Let's see what was removed. Timeline. That was the good. Okay, authorization recover. So nice. Okay.
let me comment on that and more.
This- And then, so, okay. So then if params, see if the params exist for the request.
Hmm. Hmm. I'm trying to think.
Also want like a method that like will say if I'm process project, this param, and that like takes a set of params. And then I want it to be like this is to help me see like, hey, do we have if a param key params has the key of let's say project ID, project path, like a set of just list of things. So let's say as project path or project ID, right? And then params key. So now has project path, anything to deal with a project. I'm gonna get has project path. Okay. And also I'm just gonna put I'm gonna return this as a list. What do I want this as project path to be? I want to return the project based on assuming it's got a project path or project ID. I don't think there's a separate call, but let's do here, return E. E. I'm honestly going to take all this because this I don't want this in the actual MCP base API call. This all this logic doesn't make sense. Do we have find by? Let's see, find by args. Huh. Does it do it by a path too in the project? Maybe gotta find by URL too. Find by ID. Find by full path. Find by URL, I guess. Okay. So you can pass in a URL too. Okay. Say check path. Yeah. Okay, project ID. So let's say this is, I'm gonna have to clean this up, but this should give me the find project access. Okay. All right, and then user project, uh, project param, or just params. And then now we have authorized code based on a user. And then right here, this is where I want to say authorized access is equal to MCP file access and
Yeah.
then params. I think, okay. Okay. That's roughly the idea that I want. And then I'm going to take all this because right now this is just like rescuing and take. Oh, I wouldn't, I'm not passing the project anywhere. I'm just checking access right now. Like the
Yeah.
idea would be in the handler for the call tool, it needs to know to invoke the request and not just based off the params, but the project, right? I think that would be,
Yeah, the problem is not every tool needs a project, right? So
yeah.
it would be like an
Okay.
optional param. But okay, yeah. I mean, this makes sense. We should get someone from security to look at like, not saying this is wrong. I'm just wondering if there's like something smarter we can do in not having to manually do the auth for every custom tool.
I feel
Um,
what you're saying because it does feel so like something's wrong with like doing this for tool. I'm just like I don't know exactly how to check authorization, assuming we're not directly calling an API. Like we're
let me
not calling an API. That's basically it.
let me ping Jesse.
You did this. We kind of do have an odd logic though for how we do duo features. So
Um, I don't know, man. Like this is a hard one. I pinged Jesse, so we'll see what she says. It's awesome that you're tagging her. Post your thing, because
Nathan, do you have a sleeping pad tomorrow? Sorry, I was on a work meeting. Um, um, okay. So, yeah, call. Sorry about that. Let's see. I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna copy it. So like what we do for authorization for our Duo features is something, it's in this LLM authorizer where we look at a container
yeah.
and then we see if the container has a specific ability on to access that. And like it's generally like on a policy check. So like policy group. Mm, Rule Duo. That is policy, group policy. Oh, let's see. One policy, what is this? Like a user has access to, this is not obviously not the one, but a user has access to a specific feature. And like we do that respectively for our Duo features kind of ad hoc. And I know we're sort of kind of bypassing the API. So if this is a custom tool, like it's it's not I'm trying to say like we we can implement our own logic. It's just we're not
What if we do a separate HTTP call for now? Like
um
we do HTTP like read files tool, or sorry, we do an HTTP call like how they had before in the old implementation and just call the read files API and then just do the aggregation.
oh so we do a post and then assuming that post fails, we then do our assuming it fails, we don't do our tool call, and then we do our tool call afterwards and just pass that to the
But
LM.
so you know how they have the get it in the old implementation they have like they just literally call the issue API
Hmm.
like inside of Rails. Like what if we did the same thing?
Oh, let's see. Tool execute access token. So this is the old one. That's handlers. Let's see. I want to see what the handlers was like. Create merge request. Where do they call the post? The old one. I just want to see. Oh no, it's oh, there's too many of these files. No, it's a spec. Oh, where's this? No, this is the manager. This is the new one. So use an RPC. It was added somewhere. Sorry, I'm looking for where this was added, where we're doing just the HTTP request. Is it in the calls? Oh, here we go. Yeah, here we go. So you're saying
Yes.
here where we're doing perform.
What if we just did, I don't know, man, it's a hack again.
Oh. Oh, I see. Okay. So you do the request based on okay, we have a set like a mapping of like, oh, it's this service, it's this tool. We do the same request, but then the actual output that we're returning is or
like you don't have to do that auth service that you're writing if you just take the param and you pass the user as part of like the auth token as part of the request,
yeah.
just like they're doing there.
Hmm.
Um, the problem with that is you're literally creating another request to the Rails instance in itself, which like that's why it's kind of slow. I think that's why they did that though, is because of um they would have otherwise had to build the custom lot auth logic like we were talking about before, where we do manual auth checks.
I really
Uh,
want to ask um
I feel like we need to meet with Max
or Chance too.
and Chance. Sorry, yeah, probably Chance because he's more of our time zone.
Hmm.
And go through. I just don't understand the problem enough. The historical context.
Because
It just feels like both are fitting the custom like the API one-to-one mapping is bad because I don't know if you just saw the issue where they found that like the create commit tool is uh filling up the entire context window because it has to input like the whole file, right?
I did not see that. Was that on the
I'll send it.
MCP uh, the feedback issue, or is this? Feel free to send that to me so I can see. Because I have mostly been dealing with just like setup bugs and adding new features. I haven't seen anything with the existing tools that are currently, I guess, broken. Oh,
I sent it. I sent you one.
is this for the? Are they using MCP tools directly for this one?
This is just like a do a workflow service tool, but it's like the tool that they implemented is pretty much the exact same thing as if we did an API map one-to-one mapping for creating
Uh,
a right because you can create a commit via the API, I'm pretty sure.
mhm.
Um,
Yep.
so it's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like if we did a one-to-one mapping, you would have this exact issue. And then if you have a one-to-one mapping, you have to go and create the custom tool, right? But then now we're in the custom tool land, and the custom tool land has like
Off.
question marks on auth.
Yeah. Okay, so ideally we would like to create a custom tool because then it solves this problem. And when
It
the
allows you to properly design the tool, right? That's the why I've been arguing so hard for like, no, we cannot do one-to-one mapping because like you just can like if you go to the GitHub MCP server, they're all like people every person does not like it, like on the in the community. I saw it on Twitter, like people were like, yeah, like I load the MCP server in and it completely blows up because they did a one-to-one mapping of their API. So
Hmm.
they had like 80 plus tools. Um, so like you have to treat each tool with tender love and care. The problem with that though is um uh the way that like our architecture is not necessarily conducive to that.
Is there a way to filter on by, I guess, stars? Because I would like to see the newest reactions. Okay. Yeah. I think the thing was we need to solve this off and maybe setting up a pair time period for figuring out this with like historical context because I
Yeah.
don't know. This was built before and obviously the kind of the reason why it was done and thanks for answering that is the authentication for applications in the Rails app and like we have a lot of these routes that are configured for doing the token transfer, which is like the well-known. Um,
Yeah.
sorry,
No, no, so they implemented the OAuth handshake, but I'm wondering like, what if we keep the OAuth handshake in there and we move the tool execution into Workhorse?
I I don't have any. I think I don't quite understand exactly the benefit because I don't know Workhorse that well. But to me, that
Workhorse is just imagine if you created a Python server in front of Rails. Workhorse is literally every time you send a request to Rails, it goes through Workhorse. It's it's a reverse proxy.
Mhm.
So every request that goes through Workhorse, or sorry, that goes to Rails, goes through Workhorse in some capacity. And an example of what Workhorse does that enables things like when you upload a file, how it works is um, when you send the request you send the initial request, the initial payload of saying, "Hey, I want to open this file." It'll Workhorse will make a request to Rails. In this case, like for upload file, it'll say like user it wants to request to upload a file or create a upload file ID or whatever in the database, like basically signifying that the user is creating a file, but it hasn't. It's not actually uploading the file in the Postgres database. So what happens is Rails uses a connection in that connection or like in a separate command uses like a send URL command, a response back to Workhorse because it's a reverse proxy. And Workhorse says, okay, I've gotten like the place that I need to dump the file. Now I'm going to start streaming that file into the S3 bucket in this case, right? Then um, once that response is finished, it sends a notification back to Rails saying, hey, this is done. So Workhorse just, you think of it as a server that's sitting in front of Rails. So what I'm saying is, what we could think about is basically just like you saw the HTTP request there, we have like a get files tool. So we define the tool in the Workhorse Go code, and then we make an HTTP call to the read repository file API route that you would have done the one-to-one mapping, and you pass the user token. So it acts as a separate request, but then you do all the aggregation and all the special stuff that you need to do in that workhorse proxy and send the response back. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah, so instead of doing the work on the Rails side and actively performing, I guess, the initial DB request to start off with, it does the proxy request and before anything is done, we've already have information about that. I think I'm understanding, but maybe I need another
Here,
diagram.
I'll show you. Yeah, I'll show you. Here, let me sent a request to share.
I'm gonna stop sharing.
Oh, I thought, there we go. Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
so
you already have a drawing for Workhorse?
no, this is other stuff I've been working. So, but maybe I can steal something, so I don't have to write that much. Okay, here, let's steal this. All right, so we have Workhorse, or so this is Rails, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Actually, no, this is Workhorse.
You want to make Kuzu the Rails? I mean, we don't need a Rust library anymore.
Now, let's do like a sequence diagram. So let me make this big. Oh, I guess we'll do it this way. Make this big, all right? So we have Workhorse. We have Rails here. Why is that so tiny? So what happens, this would be the request flow. We make this bigger so we can have like 5 requests. All right. So first it does the OAuth handshake, right?
Yep.
That happens in Rails, right?
Yep.
And it's going to have to happen either way. Uh, can I not change the direction of the arrow? I guess I can't. That's dumb. Okay, so this is the OAuth handshake. So the way that's working right now is basically your request comes in, does the OAuth handshake, blah, 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 and then sends the request into Rails, and then it executes the tool inside of Rails, right? That's how it currently works. And the
Mm-hmm.
API thing is just saying like for a file route, right? Or like if you do API one-to-one mapping for get repository file, it's basically just exposing that endpoint as an MCP tool. What I'm saying, so in the old world, the tools are defined here,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm saying in here, you define like read repository files, and this has the same parameters, project. Um, and we will actually need to make this a little bit. Let's move all this in that. Let's move all this. We'll need to make this a little bigger. Okay. So workhorse we got here. Let's make this nice and big. All right, so let's zoom in. In this case, so what I'm saying is basically we have read repository files. We have project ID, right? What is the other one? Like files, right? These are the files array.
Yeah.
So
And
work,
line numbers or whatever we define the tool we want.
yeah, line numbers.
Yeah.
So Workhorse would get this request, and the MCP logic exists in here. So then it'll say, oh, okay, we got the project ID. And for each file, it calls um, the literally the file API endpoint. Um, so let's do like file one. We'll do that. Like it'll do that multiple times, right? For each file. And it'll run those in parallel. Like Go is really good at that, right? You can make those requests in parallel to Rails. Um, and then it takes the results of these um, and stores them and aggregates them
Which is the logic we'd build in the
in
workhorse.
Rails. And we build that logic in Workhorse instead and send it to back to the client.
Okay.
So that is what I'm wondering. Maybe we should explore. Because then you have all the access you need to the API. And we can churn out tools like this, like really quick. Because we don't have to worry about the OAuth, or sorry, we don't have to worry about auth because the file endpoints have the auth.
And what would be the benefit versus just directly calling, and this is not me to play devil's advocate, just the
Yeah.
HTTP post that we already do from Rails, the like we're just calling it directly on our own application. Like I guess is
No, we
the
can do that. I'm just wondering how is that going to be, is that performant? Maybe it
okay.
is. And doing all the aggregation in Rails. Maybe it is performant. I don't know.
Okay.
Good question.
That
Uh,
is good to know. I don't know.
yeah,
I
I don't know, man.
I'm supporting of any
I'm not married to any solution or anything. I'm just wondering, like, maybe there's a smarter way. The other option, like you were saying, is do the same thing as doing the HTTP request here to itself, basically. Rails requests itself. What is it like
whatever
API
endpoint, the
file?
files. Yeah, sure. I think the my only thing is like, do
Or
we have
we do
enough
it the
people?
manual way we were just thinking about, which is
This is maybe
right.
not a good reason, but do we have enough knowledge to building MCP aggregation or like logic within the workhorse project?
As long
Uh,
as you know Go, but you that's the main. You have to
main,
know Go. But Go is not that hard in my opinion. I think like I am not really like a type of person that gets uncomfortable by a new language. Go is actually my favorite language. But with AI these days, like you can learn any language. Um,
it's true.
that's why we wrote all of Knowledge Graph in Rust because um, all tree setters